Cummins.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Thank you.
The year is flying by. I can't believe it's already December.
Christmas. I know.
Yes,
I'm so excited.
yes, me too. Well, thank you so much for letting me come visit your class the other day. I really enjoyed seeing how your kiddos were doing, and I want to go over that with you today. So,
Sure.
The main things we're going to be doing, 4 major steps in our meeting. It's just going to take about 5 minutes. So first, we're going to see how you feel the lesson went. Then I'm going to give you some positives that I saw, areas where I want you to definitely keep it up because they were amazing. And then an area of refinement that you can be working towards, especially for our next observation. And then finally, some follow-up steps. So do you have any questions about those things that we're doing?
Good.
All right. Perfect. Let's jump right in.
Okay.
So how do you think the lesson went?
It went pretty well. I was happy and excited. My kids knew what to do, the expectations, especially when we broke into different center groups and did the experiments. They knew exactly their classroom job, where the materials were. There wasn't any loss of time in between transitions. And they did pretty well as far as talking their way through the lesson activity. So,
well, I definitely saw all of those positives and have a few more to add.
Awesome.
So I was very impressed by the level of depth of observation and conversation that your students showed throughout the lesson. Around 4 minutes in, I saw as the students were beginning the experiment, one student said, "I'm surprised the Propel wasn't the same as the water. Since they're both types of water, I thought they'd have the same starch." And this really showed that the student had a complete understanding of that they made a prediction at the start of the lesson, and that as the lesson went on, they observed the reaction and then were actually able to reflect upon it once the experiment was over. So it really showed their entire thought process and that they were thinking about the process from start to finish and reflecting upon it. She constructed her own learning through this hands-on lesson. So continue allowing students to build their own knowledge. 100%. That's how you're going to get the most bang for your buck, is having not the teacher say, this is what we are learning, but the student saying, okay, what am I learning?
That's great. I'm glad you saw that.
Absolutely.
Yay.
That was a major strength. And then also around 30 seconds into your lesson, when your students were asked to discuss what they knew about a starch already, one of your students said, it's like a nutrient that has to digest. And they were able to preview what might happen during the experiment. So the students were really leading their learning throughout the lesson. And then what I observed in these 2 ways is definitely going to help them get to mastery and help them really understand their learning. So great job in those areas.
Awesome.
So one area for improvement is making sure that the students are held accountable for what they're learning by going over the objective before the start of the lesson. Yeah, so that way the students know the end goal of the lesson and why they're doing it, how this relates to the standard, so that it's not just in isolation. We're doing this activity today, tomorrow we'll do another activity. It's what am I learning by doing these experiments and these activities. So going through, if you could do this lesson again, how would you make sure that the objective is clearly communicated?
That's a good question. So when the lesson starts, the I can statement needs to be displayed on the board or on a handout or something that's visual for the students. That way it's a daily task that they know, okay, that before my lesson starts, I need to know exactly what I'm doing. So having that I can read aloud to the class, and then the class can even break it down. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Exactly what I was going to say. What a strategy that I've seen that's been very successful is having them actually circle the verb in the objective and then underline the main idea. So that way the keywords will stand out to them when they can refer back to it throughout the lesson and constantly be made aware of why they're doing this. What is the goal? What are they learning? So a little example. Well, let's do a little example. I'm excited for your enthusiasm. So if the objective is, I can describe the connection between a series of scientific concepts or steps in a technical procedure in a text, what would the verb be?
Describe.
Absolutely. Describe. So that's what they're doing. And then what are they going to be describing?
Right. We have to break it down even more.
Yes.
So they're going to describe the connection between specifically that series of concepts. Yeah.
Exactly. In this case, what would that be?
Scientific concepts of starch,
Right.
The different liquids, the
Exactly.
6 different liquids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by circling describe and underlying connection in scientific concepts, that'll all tie in together, that they're describing those relations in the scientific concepts as they proceed through their experiment with starch.
Okay, yeah.
Right. So we went over how to analyze or break apart that verb, and the students will actually be the ones to do it, to pick out the verb, underline the main idea. So how do you see this being implemented in your classroom in the upcoming lessons?
So, yeah, this can be implemented right tomorrow when we first go in. I can start by having it on a PowerPoint or just, dry erase marker on the board, and then even maybe having a kid come up, and then they could be the one that their job is to break down the objectives, circle the verb, underline the nouns. Then the students can repeat back to the student in charge what those big words are of the lesson.
Exactly. I think that's a great strategy for implementing and really making it part of your routine so the kids start to know this is expected and they can do it on their own.
That works.
I think that's excellent, and I can't wait to see throughout my next observation the growth in this area and those strengths. I know they're going to get even better.
Yeah.
You really are an amazing teacher, and I know with these little tweaks and improvements that your kids are just going to be so ready.
Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And do you have any other questions before we end our meeting?
I don't think so. I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and have a great rest of the week.
You too, Ms. Whitaker.
Bye, Ms. Cummins.
Bye-bye.